Welcome to Recovery His Way. This week's episode is a little bit different. We're going to play a clip from this past week's graduation, which we do once every month. And our director, Tom, always gives a message at the graduation. And this month he focused on the newness that comes with a transformed life in Christ. And this very much is at the heart of the His Way mission and what we are trying to accomplish in the program and in the environment and the culture that we establish on our campus for our residents. So I hope you enjoy the clip and get even further insight into what our program is all about. If you have any questions or want more information, as always, visit our website, hiswayinc.org.
The world in which we find ourselves these days is, most would say, like none other that we've ever seen. As we face a global corona pandemic, as we face racial rioting and unrest, as we face police disrespect and attacks, as we face major cities being burned and destroyed, Bibles being burned, flags being burned, environmental concerns, economic collapse, political dissension, presidential elections, and a future that is filled with uncertainty. It seems that it can be an overwhelming situation, yet it seems to me that as unique as many of these details are, after nearly 62 years in my life, it seems some ways like another verse of the same old song. And sometimes it just seems that, we play this record over and over again. Yeah, the details may be a little different, but it's always the same melody. Solomon says, and I want to read a passage in Ecclesiastes. Solomon says, "Vanity of vanities," says the preacher, "vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south, it goes around to the north, around and around goes the wind, and on its circuit the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness, a man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. If there is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has already been in ages before us." You see, the writer of Ecclesiastes says something that I think is important for us a tough pill to swallow, but a reality to swallow, is that there's nothing new under the sun. As he says, can you look around you and say, hey, this is new? And the reality is really no. Seen it before, we'll see it again. And one of the things that is true here is under the sun, if we choose to limit ourselves to being merely physical creatures, products of an evolutionary process, limiting ourselves to the secularist position, then yes, that is true. However, I believe, and we believe, that we are more than that, right? We're created by God in His image. We're spiritual beings, eternal creations that find meaning beyond the sun in God's one and only Son. Jesus arrived, God's creative word became flesh and revealed amazing truths. In fact, in Mark chapter 1, it says in verse 21, as Jesus beginning His ministry, says, "And they went into Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath He entered the synagogue and was teaching. And they were astonished at His teaching, for He taught them as one who had authority and not as the scribes. Immediately there was in the synagogue a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, 'What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God.' But Jesus rebuked him, saying, 'Be silent and come out of him.' And the unclean spirit convulsed him, and crying with a loud voice came out of him. And they were all amazed, so that they questioned among themselves, saying, 'What is this? A new teaching with authority. He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey Him.'" You know, it's an amazing story here. We study this in my class sometimes, and it's interesting. You know, here's a synagogue. The Jews are gathered together every Saturday to worship. This guy probably was there every Saturday for the assembly. And yet this particular assembly, because Jesus was there, was like none other. And he spoke as one who had authority. He spoke as one because he was authority. And because of that, all of a sudden, this unclean spirit for the first time felt uncomfortable, felt threatened, felt challenged. And Jesus casts him out of the man. And after that happens, the crowd looks at the scene and says, this is a new teaching. We've been coming a long time and we've never heard anything or seen anything like this before. Jesus came with something new. It wasn't vanity of vanities. It wasn't life under the sun. It wasn't the same old, same old. It wasn't one more time with the earth and one more time with the sun and one more time with the wind and one more time with the flow of water. No. Something new had happened. And something new was happening. A new teaching. And as Jesus began to revolutionize the world that he had created with his wondrous acts and powerful teaching, he would declare this in Mark chapter 2. He would say in verse 21, no one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. If he does, the patch tears away from it, and the new from the old, and a worse tear is made. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is destroyed. So are the skins, but new wine is for fresh wineskins. You see, Jesus came to bring a new wine, a new message, a new way. His way could not be contained in an old system of rituals, an old system of sacrifice, an old system of regulations, the old routines, the old regimen. It couldn't be contained there. It would require a new container with a new system and a new way of life. His way demands new lives, new perspectives, new identities, new habits, new friends, new neighbors, new relations, new hobbies, new languages, new jobs, new homes. Everything must change. Because if we try to contain Jesus' new way in our old lives, it will burst our lives and we'll lose his way. In Romans 12 and verse 2, it says, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. A new person. In Psalm 149:9, it says, sing to the Lord a new song. In Revelation, as God's people worship the Lamb who is slain, the worthy Lamb Jesus. Revelation 5:9 says, and they sang a new song. Revelation is filled with the unveiling of something new, something brand new that Jesus is doing and bringing into the world. In Revelation 21, as we draw to the close of the story, it says this, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He'll dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. And he who is seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. You see, the reality is, these guys each have a story about tears that are being wiped away, about a grief that doesn't have to be lived in, about a new start, a fresh beginning, and a pain that they can be freed from. You see, because Jesus makes all things new. That's our celebration tonight. Celebrating new.